we talked about some things about what folks should be considering as they go through the process. But what are some of the things that sort of get law clerks in trouble?
Talking about each other, being behind each other's back. I always have a standing rule that if there's a problem, let's address it in chambers, bring it to my attention, let's work it out. I don't want my law clerks talking about each other or backstabbing each other. I mean, I want everybody to work well together. That's a definite don't.
On that same line, however, especially, I have a much higher level of confidentiality because I know what's happening to every judge in my court. And I know all the complaints, and I know everything that might be going on. And naturally, my staff end up knowing. They open the mail, or they get the phone calls, or they know what's happening. All of our judges have a level of confidentiality. When you're working for the judge, you will be told what goes on in chambers. Unless you see it out in a memo, the judge has put it out on the email or sent out a memo, you don't talk about it, not even to other law clerks. And I have seen law clerks get in trouble who have taken stories out of their chambers and said something about what went on or what their judge was going to do, and then it got back. And it's not a good thing to do. So remember that your integrity is also, that's going to be part of your reputation as a lawyer. And it starts when you're a law clerk. Not only should you be honest within chambers and not talk to each other in an uncivil way, because that's the other thing that we have a problem with lawyers. You need to start learning civility when you're a law clerk. So you're civil in your office, in your chambers, you're civil to other law clerks, you're civil to other lawyers, and to the public. So my big don't is be careful what you say and when you say it.
Some of you are or will be, during your law school career and perhaps afterwards, interns for judges, state and federal. You really are the judge's second brain. And you are bound by the same ethical and professional norms as the judge for whom you work or to whom you're attached. So be aware of that. Be aware of casual conversation in a bar at night, on the train going home, in the park on a Saturday. Everything that happens in that chambers is confidential. What you're working on is confidential. Can you go to this demonstration? Can you participate in this nonprofit? All of that requires you to consult with your judge to clear it, so that you don't step into an ethical puddle and get you and your judge in trouble. So it's a very, very serious endeavor to work for a judge, calling for the highest level of confidentiality and integrity. So that must be guarded against at all costs. Your significant other or spouse or partner, you don't go home and tell him or her everything. In fact, you tell very little, okay? That's the way it is.
Okay, I want you all to pick up your pen and put it to a piece of paper and write down this commandment. Thou shalt not blog or tweet about thy work. I know we're in the generation, the super information superhighway. I can tell you that at the International Criminal Tribunals, you deal with confidential information, and if you leak that information, you may get a witness killed. That's how serious the situation is. A witness may, and we've had witnesses who have testified at the tribunals who have been killed. We have had a number of law students who have come as interns who just can't resist coming back and blogging or writing about their experience at the tribunal. I know it's fascinating. It's really interesting work. But you may not disclose information that you heard in closed session or that you heard in a private session that might wind up getting a witness killed. And so blogging and tweeting is all great, and social networking, that's a lot of fun. You don't talk about your judge. You don't say from the courtroom on your whatever thing you've got, a smartphone, dumb phone, whatever it is. I say anybody who sends a note about their judge from the courtroom is working off their dumb phone, I guarantee you. You don't say, wow, you should have seen the judge, he blew his stack with this one defendant. You do not do that. You do not do that. And do it once, and there's no such thing as do it twice. I want to mention just one other thing, and this is a brief thing. We have about 50 applicants for every unpaid internship position that we have. So it's a very highly competitive process. For every paid position at the P2 level, we have between 200 and 400 applicants. So it's very highly competitive. And for every person that I select to be an intern or to be a staff member, I've turned down 199 or 49 equally well-qualified individuals who I had to make a tough decision on, because they're all extraordinary applicants. I had a young woman from a New York law school, I won't say which one, was a very good law school in New York though, who came to the tribunal, and after a day of working on a very important project, and I took an hour of my time to explain to her how important this project was. It was a disclosure project or a discovery project that I had 2 other attorneys working on, and I needed her help. And she walked in at the end of the day and she told my legal coordinator, who was from Pakistan, you know, I've decided I'm just really not interested in what you people do. Now, this young woman was on a 3-month delay because her big New York law firm, Big Law New York law firm, didn't have a position for her right away. And on her second day working for me, she had decided that she really wasn't interested. I didn't have her standing at a copy machine. I didn't have her site checking footnotes. I had her reviewing documents and deciding what was and wasn't going to be disclosed to an attorney. But she wasn't interested. And I regretted so deeply the bad decision I had made by turning away one of 49 other qualified applicants. So I brought her in my office and I said, let me tell you what, I'm going to help you out here because I don't want you doing something you're really not interested in. So I'm going to make sure that that visa we got for you to come here is revoked, and I want you out of the country by Friday, and I'm putting a note in your file that you're never to be hired by an international organization. I know that was one mistake, and you may think it's harsh, but for those other 49 people who didn't get a shot, it wasn't harsh at all. So if they ask you to answer the phone, if they ask you to go pick up the trash, if they ask you to do whatever, it's because somebody needs you to do that today. And I didn't ask anybody to do anything that was below their skill level. I truly didn't. I didn't ask them to do any of those ugly things. I just asked them to be a lawyer and be a professional. So I think that's the key.
Please check your Facebook pages, because it's possible that there could be images or comments that are on your Facebook pages that might get looked at by people in the chambers where you are applying. And if these are images that might be construed negatively, you won't get hired. Please do that. Please, you're all good communicators. You wouldn't be in law school if you weren't. Please have someone else read the materials that you're sending to a judge when you're applying for a job, your significant other, your friend. Because when we write something over and over and we read it all the time, we sometimes will just blip over a glaring typographical error that someone who's reading it fresh for the first time might say, oh, gee. So please do that. And finally, if you get your foot in the door, when you get your foot in the door, because all of you will since you're at this program, when you get your foot in the door, just some common sense things like saying please and thank you, and referring to people as sir or ma'am. Believe me, there are others who will not do this. And when you do that, the person who you're being respectful to will take notice of those things.
I've got two other things to offer. One, as a law clerk, you will get that call from a lawyer or a law firm, someone from a law firm, and they will ask you to do something that is really not something that you are supposed to be doing. In other words, they will ask you to do their job. You don't work for them. You work for your judge. And you have to figure out a way to diplomatically tell them you're not here to do their job, but they will, especially when my law clerks first start, when they come to me and say, Judge, so-and-so called and wants this, that, or the other, and they look at me, you know, what do you think? I'm like, I think you shouldn't be doing their job. They have paralegals, they have law clerks in the firms, they have new associates, they can send them down to look at the file. Because in our big court, to go look at a file is not like just walking over there and pulling a file out of the cabinet. It's a lot of work to track the file down, because it could be with one of the other 23 judges in our court. It could be in one of the clerk's office. I mean, it's easier said than done. So that's the first thing. Then the other thing is that whether it's as a law clerk or as a practicing lawyer, when you read a code and there are annotations behind that code, do not cite a case that is annotated unless you have read that case. There are, I cannot begin to tell you how many times lawyers have cited cases, and I guess they thought I wasn't going to go back and read them. And I go back and I read the case, and I'm like, but this doesn't even come close to standing for what you argued it stood for. And, you know, that kind of stuff gets out. When you do that more than once, you know, judges talk about what lawyers do in their courtrooms, and it will get back, and you do not want to have that kind of reputation.